Hello there, YouTube. Devin here again. Sorry I've been away for a while. I've been doing collaborations with Mike, if you haven't seen any of those. Since my last video, I've also gotten a new job, which has been taking a lot of my time. Unfortunately, this new job is making me a lot more money, though, and it's a lot less stress than my old job. And then I had a cold for a little while after I was that. So if you hear me cough in this video, unfortunately, it's because I still have that cold, and I'm trying my best to contain it. I'm on my way up from it, but it just got so cold and so wet here so fast that it really kind of brought on this cold pretty rough. And I get about one a year. That's pretty bad, but I'm on the way out, unfortunately. But we got a new gun to show you here today. And it's a gun that is actually very, very close to my heart as far as the design goes. I love mashups and everything like that, as you who have been following the channel know, and all of you new people who don't know. I really like mashups between two countries, and this is a really, really, really awesome mashup rifle. It has a lot of neat history behind it. And that rifle is the P14. So this one's kind of a weird P14, but it's still a very good condition P14. This is a would have started its life as a Winchester P14. It is serial number 131061 of the Winchester type, so it's got the W prefix before it. This one, unfortunately, isn't entirely a Winchester, though. It has a lot of Eddystone small parts on it, a lot of the swing swivels, and a lot of other weird stuff on it, like the little piece of metal right here that holds this top handguard on is an Eddystone. That's all adds to this rifle's history, actually. So this rifle, in particular, was made by Winchester early in World War I. It's a fairly early serial number. They made about 1.4 million of these total. Winchester only made a few 100,000, and this is 131,000 serial number range. And the bolt, the receiver, and the barrel are all original and match to this rifle. The rear sight is also Winchester rear sight, but the swing swivels, the stock plate here at the back, so the stock plate, the barrel band, both the barrel bands, so the front and middle barrel band, are not matching. Those are all Eddystone parts. And the reason they're different is because the parts technically aren't interchangeable on the Pattern 14s. They all had their own sets of gauges and measurements, so you can't take Remington parts and put them on a Winchester P14, and you can't take Eddystone parts and put them on a Winchester P14. A lot of the parts of the Remingtons and the Eddystones do interchange, or can take very little modification to interchange, because they're both Remington factories and their measurements were pretty similar. They probably had some crossover, because Remington and Remington Eddystone were two of the manufacturers of these. So there's three manufacturers of the P14. Winchester, which will all be prefix W, Remington, which will be prefix R, and Eddystone, which will be prefix E. So Eddystone made by far the most. So technically, a lot of people like to say that there's three manufacturers, but actually there's two, because two of them are Remington. So it's just Remington in different locations. So a lot of people screw that one up, unfortunately. But this is a revamped rifle, though. You could tell because it's missing the dial sights on it for volley sighting and everything like that, because this went through the Weed and Repair standard before World War II. And this rifle, for you of my UK viewers out there, might know this as the the number 3 Mark I rifle, as it was known in British stock. It is 303 British. Here it is a Charger. So now the history between this rifle is very kind of short-lived. This rifle was used from about 1914 until 1947, when it was declared obsolete, and it wasn't actually all that well liked, unfortunately. I really, really like this rifle. I'd rather have one of these over a Smelly or a number 4, actually. I really, really like this rifle, and it's a shame that it didn't really work out. So it all started its life much like the American 1903 did. This rifle is based off of the Mauser 93 action, combined with a lot of smelly parts on it, so magazine Lee Enfield parts. So the British went into the Boer War with the magazine Lee Enfield, which is a pretty good rifle. A lot of people seem to think there's a lot of nostalgia about it. I personally don't like their that rifle. It's a good rifle. I've shot plenty of them. They're fun and everything like that, but it's not for the style of shooter that I am, unfortunately. But it's a good rifle in its own right. I'm not bagging on the rifle or the system or anything at all. It's just not for me, personally. But it's an excellent rifle in its own regard. And that went up against Boers in the Second Boer War with Mauser 93 style actions, which are a cock on close, stripper clip fed, internal magazine, 5-shot, 7mm, very flat shooting, very fast velocity rifle. And it was immaculate, and it was kind of the same thing that the Americans had in the Spanish-American War, taking the Krags up against the same rifle, the 1893 Mauser system. And they decided that their rifle, even though they won, same thing with the Smelly, so the Smelly and the Krag Jorgensen both went up against the 1893 Mauser system at different times, and they both decided that they weren't really good enough. Their current service rifles weren't good enough, and so they wanted something more like the 1893 system. And so the Americans would eventually take the Mauser 98 system and combine it with some Krag parts to come out with the 1903 Springfield. And the British would take a Mauser 93 and combine it with an SMLE, and basically you get the Pattern 14. The Pattern 14 is actually the second rifle in the family, though. The first one was the Pattern 13. And the Pattern 13 pretty much looked exactly like this rifle, but it was chambered in a 7mm rimless cartridge, a 7.2mm rimless cartridge called 276 Enfield, which was 7.2 by 60mm rimless cartridge, whereas this is chambered in 303. And basically what that brought that about is in 1913, they were experimenting with this rifle and it was going to be the new standard, but then war kind of happened and they just decided they weren't going to have two kinds of ammo or try to replace everything. So they just quickly converted this system to be made in 303, and it stuck its life out through the war. This rifle performed quite well up on the front. It had a few issues with troops, though. And it had very easy sights to use because with the Smelly and stuff, these sights are going to be similar. So it has a battle sight that is for like 450 yards. It's a shit ton. There's no way it needs to be that much. It's too much. Or is it like 250? I think it's 250 yards. And then if you flip up, you have 100 meters. Then it goes all the way up to like 1,800 yards. Sorry. This would have been yards. Britain wasn't metric at this point. So it would have had yards. And the cool thing about the sight is, if you're cavalry or something, and you bump the sight, you're not going to damage it by doing that, bending it backwards. And no matter what you have the range adjusted to, since it's not a tangent style sight, if you slap your sight down, it's not going to mess with the zero on your battle sight, which is a neat feature. Now this is a Mauser 90. Let's scoot a little closer. All right, so this is a Mauser 93 style action, which means it is cock on close, which means, so most hunting rifles and everything you're going to find are going to be cock on open. So what this means is that there's no resistance when you're opening the bolt. Bolt's really easy to open, but when you close it, you see the bolt gets to here, and it's not all the way closed. It's not in battery. But then you got to push it that last little bit, and you see the cocking piece exposes there. Okay, so then when the cocking piece is exposed, so this is where the action actually cocks. So the bolt catches on the sear, the firing pin, and everything catches on the sear, and the bolt body goes forward to lock. And that's when the rifle actually becomes cocked. Whereas if you look at like a Mauser 98, it gets cocked when you open it. So rather than when you're closing it. And now this cock on open versus cock on close is kind of debatable. I think cock on open is much more better for somebody who's much slower at shooting, better at marksmanship, taking more accurate shots, where cock on close is a much faster system. So, and this is basically a transfer over from the magazine, the Enfield, being a cock-on-close system. The British really liked the cock-on-close system. It allowed for rapid shooting, which is also why the bolt is shaped like this. The bolt has this weird dog leg shape to it because it allows the finger. So when you're shooting like this, so you get the rifle up, you get it into your system. Sorry, the follower stops the bolt from closing. So you push the bolt forward and you wrap it down, and your fingers are right there on the trigger. Basically, it's really fast to shoot. It also allows you to do something that the British are really known for, which is where you work the bolt with your thumb and forefinger, and you use your middle finger to pull the trigger. So you can I'm not doing like full bolt throws on this either because the follower of the magazine stops it, but you can just work the bolt really quick, and then you can just fire it with your middle finger. So another really innovative feature about this rifle is the rear sight is very well protected. It has this huge kind of housing. No matter what you bang or dent or slam into this rifle, you're not going to hurt your sights because these big, huge protector wings up there. And then the safety is very ergonomic to use. So down like this is safe, and up like this is ready to fire. So it's a super, super nice rifle. You don't need to remove your finger from the trigger housing or anything to flip the safety on and off. It's very ergonomic and easy to use. You could do it with one thumb, and then you're ready to go. And it's also very close to the bolt. So if you need to, if you leave it on an empty chamber, you can flip your safety off and work your bolt really quick and then be deposited right by the trigger. This rifle's meant for speed over anything, okay? Which is something the British really, really liked. They really, really liked being able to shoot fast over pretty much anything else. So now the magazine only holds 5 rounds and 1 in the chamber, so it can hold 6, but you really weren't supposed to do that in doctrines of the time. So it is a small ring style Mauser action, 2 locking lugs, rotating bolt, pretty large heavy extractor. It did have really good primary extraction because of the rimmed ammo and of the camming force of the action. So it didn't really have lots of problems with the ammo. It handled the British ammo really well. But it wasn't liked by troops because troops really like to have 10 rounds over 5. Okay, this was favored amongst marksmen and stuff like that. Marksmen really, really liked the P14. But frontline troops, the average frontline Tommy, did not like the P14. You had 5 rounds rather than 10, which means you had to reload twice as often, which meant that you are more liable to get dirt and debris into the system, which would make the rifle jam and fail up and everything like that. And so basically around 1916, when short magazine, the Enfield production caught up, the P14 was delegated to secondary line use only to free up more short magazine, the Enfields, for the front. So you see more of these going to reservists and home guard units and truck drivers and stuff like that getting these rather than frontline troops. So the frontline troops could get the short magazine, the Enfields. And the British kept these in stock until 1947 when they were declared obsolete. So after World War II, this rifle would make a resurgence for use with the reservists and stuff and for training purposes during World War II. A lot of them would go through the Whedon the Whedon Standard upgrade, as it was called, where you would see a lot of the stuff scrubbed off of them, kind of like this one. And stuff would have been forced fit. Parts left over would have been used to match. Rifles would have been repaired, reblued, and stuff like that. Most of them would have got new stocks that had the volley sights removed, the volley sight dials removed and stuff, and everything like that. And big, chunky front sight used to protect the front sight, which you have to drift over and everything like that. It's an excellent, excellent rifle. It works really, really well. It's really easy to reload, and it's just a fun rifle to shoot. It's really comfortable in the hand. It has a very heavy, accurate barrel. Great to use. So, and the Americans would basically take this rifle design when they would enter the war, switch out a few things to make it usable for 30-06, make it entirely parts interchangeable, which none of the P14s are actually interchangeable, redesignated the M1917 in American service standards, and it would be for 30-06. And it was actually the most common used rifle during World War I for the Americans. So it's just an excellent rifle. It's got a ton of good history to it, and I absolutely love it. This one's actually a really gorgeous example too, and I'm really glad to have a Winchester one, which is kind of hard to find. They're a little bit harder to find than the Eddystone and the Remington ones because they just made so much more. So hopefully you guys like this video and you subscribe if you like this sort of thing. Once again, I'm so sorry you guys I haven't made more videos or anything like that. I've been so busy with the new job and everything. I'm going to try to fix that though, and hopefully I got some other cool stuff coming up for you guys here in the future as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.